World Beyond World by teacher Woo Myung. This passage is called "The Eyes Are the Mirrors of the Mind." The whole of creation is of one mind, and it is reflected in our eyes. Accordingly, one's eyes are the mirrors of his mind, since they reflect his mind. The whole of the existent and non-existent universe is the mind, and that mind is the whole. It is simply one. Man, however, is deceived by his discernments of what exists and what does not. So his eyes cannot see from the viewpoint of the whole, or in other words, the viewpoint of the mind. That is why his discernments are endless. This passage is called "The Way for Mankind to Live Well." Man must first gain true consciousness if mankind is to live and do well. The true consciousness is the mind of God, which is righteous. The more human civilization develops materially, the more developed a country becomes. The higher the incidence of crime, drug use, and suicide. Sweden and Denmark, arguably two countries in the world with the highest quality of life, have the highest rates of suicide in the world. The results of a happiness index showed that generally less developed countries received higher scores for happiness. Those whose minds hold a lot of falseness chase false things until they eventually die. When people come to their original senses, or rather when they become the original mind, people are less busy. This is because even while they work, they do so with a secure mind, the mind of oneness. Therefore, they are able to work without stress or difficulties because they do not have human minds. Many people from communist societies in the past were dedicated to the communist ideology in order to receive recognition. Only later, after they received awards and decorations, did they realize that these accolades are meaningless. Living for others is a true accolade that never changes or loses its luster. A person who has come to his true senses and has become truth will live for others. If all of humankind discards themselves and lives resurrected as truth, all people will live a life of one, a life of caring for others. This is the way for mankind to live well. This passage is called "One's words and actions reflect what and how much he has in his mind." People live in the world with suffering and with countless agonizing thoughts and delusions. Albert Camus compared human life to the toils of Sisyphus, that it is like having to repeatedly push a heavy boulder up a steep hill, only for it to roll back down to its original position. People claim to know things from inside their own self-centered minds, formed from the environment in which they grew up. Within this mind, this mass of attachments, they say they know or do not know something. People live, speak, and act according to what and how much they hold in their minds. For example, people's professions and the ways in which they make a living is decided in this way. Those who have studied the law, or those who have law in their minds, make a living from the law, while those who have studied medicine make a living from medicine. People live according to what they hold in their minds. People's abilities also come from what they have in their minds. They move because they have minds, and they live because they have minds. People who do not have selfish minds are saints and complete people. It is not one's mind of attachments that allows him to live a good life. A person lives well when he does not have such attachments, and he lives according to nature's flow. A person who has truth in his mind is truth itself, and such a person does not live with a selfish mind. He can be said to live a good life because he is free, and he lives without worries, burdens, and hindrances. This passage is called, "People look at the finger instead of the moon it points to." We criticize and judge others with our own standards and scales. I teach truth, and there have been many who have been following me. My aim has always been to teach people of truth. But I pity those who seem to have followed me instead of following truth. Truth is the world as it is, and as we live it. People think that a Doin, one who walks the way of truth, should be like a stone statue of Buddha, but a true Doin is one who lives amongst others, and yet has been born into heaven, thus living eternally and saving mankind. Consequently, I do not fit into the standards of these people, who have their own notions of what a Doin is. Each person sees everything through his own standards. To some, a certain person may seem merely annoying, but to others that same person may be their worst enemy. Indeed, to see from these different perspectives is one's own mind, his own image. There is a saying that the eyes are the mirrors of a person's mind. This means that everything exists in one's mind, and that mind is reflected in his eyes. This passage is called "A Sense of Inferiority." Human desires differ from person to person, but every desire is manifested from feelings of inferiority, of feeling not good enough or having less than other people. A person who lacks love seeks love, and a person who lacks money chases money. The powerless seek power, and he who has his pride trampled on seeks to regain his pride. What one felt he lacked during his developmental years becomes his sense of inferiority. For example, if a woman suffers abuse from her mother-in-law, she will in turn be harsh to her daughter-in-law because she has that mind. One pursues what he desires, and these arise from the innumerable minds that he has. They are all expressions of his mind. There is a saying that things happen according to the mind one has. This means that one lives exactly according to the mind he has taken in, no more and no less. What one eats is excreted through urine and feces. But man has never excreted any of the countless minds he has consumed from birth, and he lives with the burdens, suffering, worries, and anxieties that they bring. Those minds are all pictures taken of what belongs to the world, and he is dead in the world of that mind, which itself is a picture. He strives to achieve within that picture world, but his actions and deeds are all false because he lives according to the script of that mind. The world beyond the world, that is, the world beyond the human mind that has been eliminated, is the true land, a real world that is not a picture. When this real world is inside one's mind, his feelings of inferiority will disappear, and he will have only the highest mind of truth. He who is born in this place is God. He is one who has shed all human minds, and he is one who is free. It is because of the pictures in one's mind that there are conflicts and obstacles while living in the world. When this fixed framework of mind is gone, those conflicts and obstacles also disappear, and he will be able to live better than he did before. Acceptance is the absence of judgment and discrimination. When one sees things just as they are, when he just lives. If one has a framework of pictures in his mind, then many things catch in his mind and bother him, which cause him to blame others and the world. No one in the world blames himself instead of other people. But because your mind exists, everything is your fault. When the people of the world can blame themselves, everyone will have an accepting mind, and they will be able to live without conflict, and everyone will live well. When man eliminates the false world that he has eaten, he will live a life of nature's flow, and he will be able to live well because he will no longer have feelings of inferiority. When people act with minds that originate from feelings of inferiority, they will act as the worst evil. These actions will only bring more evil as their result. Evil begets evil. However, the evil will end up dying within evil. Within evil, the evil will live with pain and heavy burdens. This poem is called Once. Listen, all of you. Truth is Anamita, yet truth is the existence of Namita within Anamita. Truth is the absence of all things, yet the existence of all things in the universe is also truth. When giving birth to the whole of creation, it is heaven's will to do so with harmony. All creations which live therein must realize the obvious logic that they must learn to discard their greed and coexist. Because one's individual self exists, others exist. It is truth that people understand that they are all one. It is truth that people do deeds absent of the thoughts that they have done them. A life of truth is a righteous life, one in which man lives absent of any wants in his mind. Righteousness means for everyone to know that they are one and to act accordingly. It is important for people to know that they are one. A complete life is one in which man does not live based on greed. A complete life is one simply lived according to the flow of nature. When man lives his life in non-existence, he will become others, and so naturally all conflicts would disappear, and man would live a life that is of nature's flow, and he would be able to live decently. Man, because he is man, lives a life that is focused on making a living, but originally, man should live a life of oneness. A life in which he as an individual does not exist. For it is only when he lives such a life that it is a true life indeed. A true life is one in which there is no distinction between you and me. A true life is one in which there is no such thing as rank. A true life is one in which there is no dual life. If man were to have no wants, he would know the value of man. If man were to have no wants, he would not live in his thoughts. If man were to have no wants, he would live absent of his mind. If man were to have no wants, there would be no superior persons or inferior persons. If man were to have no wants, there would be no ranks. If man were to have no wants, there would be no such thing as high class or low class. If man were to have no wants, his mind would be unbiased. If man were to have no wants, he would have the will to live. If man were to have no wants, he would be able to live well. If man were to have no wants, he would be able to fulfill everything. If man were to have no wants, he would be able to enter into the one truth. If man were to have no wants, he would be happy and peaceful. If man were to have no wants, he would become me. If man were to have no wants, he would not be above me. If man were to have no wants, he would come out into truth and live together with me. If man were to have no wants, his mind would be in comfort. If man were to have no wants, he would not be stubborn. If man were to have no wants, he would have no pride or sense of self. If man were to have no wants, he would have no delusions. If man were to have no wants, he would not be conceited. If man were to have no wants, his core would not be his self. If man were to have no wants, he would be able to live in truth, which is a life that is of nature's flow. If man were to have no wants, research would become so easy, whereby a science that benefits humankind would develop to the utmost. If man were to have no wants, politics would be righteous, and so everyone would be at ease and would live as one. If man were to have no wants, people's standards of living would be equal. If man were to have no wants, culture would flourish to the utmost. If man were to have no wants, he would have no pride, and so there would be no conflicts. If man were to have no wants, homes, societies, and nations would be endlessly peaceful. If man were to have no wants, he would be loyal to what he does of his own accord. If man were to have no wants, he would live serving others. Therefore, people would be able to live with their minds at ease. There would be no thieves or robbers. Not one person would harbor a malevolent mind. There would not be a single person who torments others. People would all be one no matter where they go, and so the world would be a wonderful place to live. Man's wants have made the world what it is today. He thinks that so many different things exist in the world, which is why homes, societies, and countries have become selfish, ones in which he seeks to live well alone. Therefore, man is in a constant state of unhappiness and darkness. A mind absent of wants is the true mind. A mind absent of wants is the real truth. A mind absent of wants is one which knows that heaven, earth, and man are one. A mind absent of wants is one which knows where man came from and where man will go. A mind absent of wants is one which will live forever in heaven after death. Heaven must be one, earth must be one, and man must be one, in order for the world to be right. Heaven, earth, and man must be one, in order for the world to be right. Question and answer section. Question: how do we reach truth? Answer: truth is the universe that is within oneself. He who has discarded his sins can reach truth. Man consists of a body and mind, and he who has become free of his body and mind, he who has discarded them can reach truth. Question: why are our memories stored instead of being eliminated? Answer: man is born of original sin, and depending on the person, each acquires a different mind of wants and desires. That mind is his memories. Such memories are his attachments. They are what remain in his mind, and it is only in this mind of his that his memories exist. Question: will we be able to remember everything after we discard our memories? Answer: though a person may discard his stored thoughts, his memory will still remain. It is the images that will exist no more. Therefore, he will be able to recall his memories when he needs to. Question: after we eliminate our memories, will we still be able to feel emotions? Will we be able to feel happiness or sorrow? Answer: after a person discards his memories, what he feels will no longer be due to his bundle of memories. Instead, his emotions will exist but not exist. Happiness and sorrow will not exist and yet exist. Such emotions of happiness and sorrow will be felt by one's mind. That is of the universe's point of view. It will be truth that feels these, so he will not dwell in those emotions. Question: can illnesses be cured by cleansing the mind? If so, how? Answer: illnesses result from the mind of man. The body and mind are one, and so the image of the body and its behaviors are based on the mind that he has. Therefore, once he discards his mind, he will return to his perfect state, and that is free of sickness. This is how illnesses can be cured. This passage is called, "What is the End of the World?" It is a common misconception that when the end of the world comes, the world will disappear. It is said that when the end of the world comes, countless people will die, while those who have faith in their religion will not. Although many people predicted the time when the world will end, no one got it right, because they did not know the true meaning of the end of the world. The end of the world, when all people die, except for the faithful who are taken to heaven, will never come. This misunderstanding has come about because the Bible and the Buddhist scriptures and other religious scriptures have been wrongly interpreted. A certain religion believed that their followers would physically levitate into the air and be taken to heaven. They waited for this event with over 500 media representatives watching, but the levitation never happened. The true meaning of the end of the world is the end of man living in the false world. It is man being reborn as truth in the true world. Levitation means man's consciousness, which had been confined in his mind world, is reborn as the true mind, the consciousness of the great universe itself. This is the true meaning of levitation into heaven. The Buddhist scriptures, the Bible, and other scriptures are truth, but they were all written figuratively. The reason each religion has been split into so many different sects is people are unable to interpret them with the mind of truth, and instead interpret them with their own conceptions and habits. The end of the world is the time when falseness becomes truth, and it is also the time of salvation. Unless falseness becomes truth, the world and one's false self will disappear. This is the end of the world that people speak of. This is death. Falseness is the world and all other innumerable things man keeps inside his mind. It is the picture world. We must be reborn in the true world after the picture world disappears. No one knows the true world or the false world, which is why people do not know the true meaning of the end of the world and live in fear. People are so foolish enough to believe that only what is theirs and their own false ways of thinking are right. Those who are consumed by their own religion or philosophies must find what is truly right by learning to accept other things. If one is not true now, Isn't he false? It is illogical for someone who is false to say he is right. To put it differently, one must become truth. Interpret the true scriptures truly. Know its true meaning, and he must become the true truth. Isn't this the way to live at the time of the end of the world? We must keep our eyes wide open to whether a method to become truth exists in the world. We must not meet the unlucky fate of our world coming to an end. This passage is called, "What is Life?" What we think of as being alive or dead is usually judged by a certain criteria, such as whether or not it moves or fulfills a certain role. These things that move or fulfill a certain role live by recharging themselves with energy. For example, people live by getting energy from the food they eat, and if they do not eat, they die. Is there a way for people to live forever? To live eternally, one must be resurrected into the energy of God and of the universe. Before all of creation came into being, the universe would have been just the sky, the state of completely empty space. The celestial bodies appeared in this place, where there is nothing but the sky. The master of heaven and earth's creations is this existence. This existence is truth, and it is the origin and source of heaven and earth. It is an existence that is alive and the mother and father of all creation. Only this existence is truth, the everlasting and never-dying body and mind. The reason man has religion and so many other spiritual institutions is because he is imperfect and incomplete. He needs religion and other organizations in order to be able to approach the complete existence that is true. The body is born into the world of a limited amount of time and then disappears. But one will be able to live forever without death if he is reborn while he is living as the body and mind of this existence, namely the soul and spirit of the universe that is truth. He who becomes one with the world of the universe's soul and spirit that is truth, while he is living, is also truth, and thus lives forever. The way to be reborn is to destroy one's false, imperfect, and incomplete body and mind. Once he is resurrected as the existence of truth, God and Spirit, he does not die, for he is an eternal, immortal, that is truth and life. The place where this process is actually carried out is our meditation. In the past, many people died because hospitals and medicine did not yet exist. These days, people have access to such privileges and are able to live a longer life. Likewise, there may not have been a method to become true and live eternally in the past, but it now is possible because such a method exists. Only the rebirth of oneself as the body and mind of the true existence itself, is the way to live forever in the land of truth. Only this is the real life source of truth. Creation of the universe. When the God of the universe exists in man, that God is his mind. Divine creation means for the mind of man to be made one with God. To live caged in a mind filled with one's own attachments is to live a life of a sinner. It is a life that is caged in one's own prison. Just as a person is freed from prison after he has sought redemption, he who has no sin becomes free. He becomes liberated. For him, life and death do not exist, and therefore he can simply live as it is. He will always live in a state of tranquil stillness. He will live life, but not in it. He will have no mind of the fact that he lives. He will just live. Everything he does, he will do with the absence of his mind, and he will simply live as it is. Thus he will live a life of true mercy, true love, and true benevolence. A life that is of nature's flow. When one lives life with oneself in it, it is not really living at all, but rather a dead life. Such a person is one who is dead, and thus he lives trapped in hell. The way to be born in heaven and live there. There is not a cloud in the endlessly high sky. It is from here that heaven and earth were made, and it is to this place that they return. Man is also born from the harmony and balance of the sky and earth. The sky is infinite and silent, but it is omniscient and omnipotent. I am thankful to exist in the consciousness of the sky before the sky. I am thankful to exist in the world. Now that I have come to my original senses, I am one with the world, and I live with the world according to universal order. The reason people bow and pray to the heavens, the sky, is it is the original consciousness that fulfills all things. Everything in the world is like the clouds in the sky, and only the sky, the land of Zheng and Shin, is the eternal, real world. Becoming complete and alive is being born and living in heaven. But this path is one of discarding only. When one's self is gone, the consciousness of heaven remains, and he is reborn in heaven. This poem is called Living. A person who experienced the bloodiness of the world detests that bloodiness, just as a person who has experienced poverty detests poverty. It is common for man to experience hardships in his life, but man wishes to have no worries. He lives not knowing that everything in this world consists of worries. It is common that man not know the future. Everyone tries to know it, but they live unable to see or sense the future. Life is joyful when it is not life. Likewise, there is no point in knowing the future. I beseech you, do not live bound to anything, but break free from pain, sadness, from everything. Do not create humanly delusions, but live following nature's flow. Return to nature's flow. This passage is called Heaven. Many people hope to go to heaven, which they imagine is somewhere high up in the sky. However, heaven is inside us. And because it is the whole and the infinite universe, we can only enter into heaven when our minds become the whole of this infinite universe itself. Indeed, it is more difficult for one to enter into heaven than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. It is a place where no ordinary person can enter, because his sins and burdens are too great. But heaven is in man, and he is the master of that land. It is a place where there is no discernment of right and wrong, and where he who has discarded all of his sins and burden can live. One is one's own sin. He himself is the sinner. Man thinks that he is his body and his life, and it is only when he sacrifices them to God that he can live in heaven. Once he eliminates everything and his self no longer exists, the universe will become him. Such a person is one who has become the God of the universe, and thus he will not die. He will live eternally as God, with heaven in him. This poem is called Parting. People dislike partings. Some partings are absent of reluctance or regrets. There are partings in which one has had to say farewell to a person he should not, only to live pent up with heartache. To part with someone who has helped you and loved you is indeed heartbreaking. But out of all others, man has a mind in which partings are sad and full of grief. The most important thing in the world for people is to eat and live, and so they scatter here and there in pursuit of this, only to be left with heartbreak, and thus becoming a heartache to one another. They are never able to forget their love. They bury it in their hearts and live their lives in utmost longing. Though the world is not perfect, there were loving people here and there. It is on the warmth of love that man lives. Thus it is heartbreaking that the world has become a place where people do not know each other, only their own selves. What is pride? Pride is the protection of one's self. One's mind consists of the accumulation of false images. One lives with that mind, and so the narrower his mind, the stronger his pride. When there is no mind of one's self, he lives as it is. Even when he faces confrontations, he lives as it is. Even when he must face the wind, he lives like the wind, like water. He lives just as he is, just as he is shaped. Everything is one, everything is truth itself. However, in the narrow, selfish minds of humans, there is no truth. One cannot live like wind and water, because his mind cannot become the wind and water, because it cannot become the great nature. When one is rid of all conditions and throws away all of his desires, he sees all as it is and lives as it is. He is the highest one. Even though he may suffer loss in the world, he lives silently, for he is the highest one. Only one whose mind becomes the mind of nature has no enemies. A person with the mind of nature hates no one. When there are no images of the shadows of past memories, and only truth remains in his mind, then he is one who has been reborn as the mind of nature, because he is great nature itself. He is one who is one with nature. This poem is called Live as the True Shape. Fly, rest, run, walk. Everything exists according to its own shape. Do not cry, do not laugh. Just live. Live as it is. Live as your true shape. Live without mind, like nature. Abiding by nature, like rain, wind, clouds, water, and all creations. Live without mind, like nature. Do without the mind of doing. Have great mercy and compassion. Love truly. Live with true affection. Abiding by the flow of nature. Nature allows all creations to live. Through its fruits, its rewards. Likewise, just do as nature's flow, which is the greatest love in the universe. Just live that way. The true self dies when one lives only for his self, for his body. One dies because he has no true self. So be your own true shape and live as your own true shape. The true shape is a non-material entity, which exists but does not exist, which does not exist but exists. Non-material existence is great nature itself, and is truth, which exists as it is, without judgment or discernment. This poem is called A Fine Mind. The mind should be fine. When the mind is unclean, it is not fine but coarse. It is a muddle of this and that. coarse mind has many conflicts. To have many conflicts means that life is difficult. Happiness, wealth, fame are only for a fine mind. There is only unhappiness for one with a coarse mind. A person whose mind is unclean has many ups and downs of what is good and what is bad. But a fine mind has no such undulations. Anything can be contained in that mind. He who has a fine mind is a pure-hearted person. He who has a fine mind is a person whose mind is wide like the sea. He who has a fine mind can accept everything. He who has a fine mind has only the mind of truth. Only the mind of truth is a fine mind. This poem is called Live as the True Shape. Fly, rest, run, walk. Everything exists according to its own shape. Do not cry, do not laugh. Just live. Live as it is. Live as your true shape. Live without mind like nature. Abiding by nature like rain, wind, clouds, water, and all creations. Live without mind like nature. Do without the mind of doing. Have great mercy and compassion. Love truly. Live with true affection. Abiding by the flow of nature. Nature allows all creations to live. Through its fruits, its rewards. Likewise, just do as nature's flow, which is the greatest love in the universe. Just live that way. The true self dies when one lives only for his self, for his body. One dies because he has no true self. So be your own true shape and live as your own true shape. The true shape is a non-material entity, which exists but does not exist, which does not exist but exists. Non-material existence is great nature itself, and it is true, which exists as it is without judgment or discernment. This passage is called The Identity of God. The fourth dimensional universe, before the word universe even existed, is the land of God. God is the universe at its pre-universal state, and at the same time, God is the creator of the universe. The complete emptiness is the body of God, and within that body exists the sole, omnipresent mind of God. The Bible says that Jehovah stands above the wind, which means that God exists before the wind. The state of the universe before the word universe even existed is the state of God. The creator of the universe is God, and every single creation is the representation of God. This means that indeed there exists only one God, but But so many different creations exist because despite being representations of the one and only God, each creation came to be according to conditions. This poem is called The Ordinary. Truth is not something that is within the grandiose and beautiful. It is not within the things people envy. It is in the ordinary and commonplace. Truth is something that is right next to us. People do not know truth exists in one's mind, and in the same way they seek truth ignorant of the fact that the extraordinary exists in the ordinary. This passage is called Mind, Consciousness, and Spirit. Mind, consciousness, and spirit are all one. A person whose mind, consciousness, or spirit is diseased with delusion is bound to live with a delusional mind, a delusional consciousness, and a delusional spirit. On the contrary, he who lives with the true mind, true consciousness, and true spirit lives with a righteous mind, a righteous consciousness, and righteous spirit. And so he is able to see things clearly and live righteously. In short, the true mind inside you is the true consciousness, and that true consciousness is true spirit, which makes them all one and the same.